Hey, Coach. Welcome to the first episode of the Backend Blueprint for Coaches podcast. I'm your host, Sha-day. I know it looks like Chada, but it's Sha-day. And before we get into your tech roadmap for 2025, you can check the timestamps in the description if you want to skip ahead. Let me get into what led me to start this podcast for you. So first off, Happy New Year. It is 2025, and my word for the year is create. If you have a word for the year or a slogan for the year, definitely let me know because this concept is fascinating to me. I started doing it back in 2020, actually, and I just find it so helpful to actually hone in on a word or mantra for the year because anytime you start to deviate from what you said you wanted to do, you can come back to that and be like, am I actually doing this thing I said I was going to do this year? So, like I said, my word is create, and I spent a lot of time last year consuming, and I consumed a lot of social media, TikTok, Facebook, all of that. And I also consumed a lot of courses, which were great, but now especially towards the end of the year, I was really feeling like, you know what? It is time for me to actually implement all the things that I've been learning. And also, it's time to stop consuming so many other people's ideas and really just do what I feel I've been called to do. And so that's how I came up with, okay, the word for the year needs to be create because I can literally like feel my brain like wanting and craving and begging me to actually bring my ideas to life, no matter how scary they may feel. Because, like I said, I spent a lot of time just consuming. And for me, that meant a lot of time procrastinating, a lot of time thinking up a bunch of ideas, but never actually sitting down and doing the work to make them come to life. So when I sat down in December of 2024, I started to journal and brainstorm about what I wanted to create in 2025. And the first thing I wrote was, okay, I need to get back on YouTube and be posting videos weekly. But the other thing I wrote down was a podcast. And at the time, my priority was YouTube. And if you've been following me on YouTube, if you're subscribed, you know that I started out posting kind of regularly and then took a break and then posted a little bit more and then took a break. And I was like, okay, girl, we need to get consistent in 2025. But if I'm being honest, I would say one of the real reasons that I would take breaks is that I find it very hard to like always be camera ready. And camera ready means different things to different people. And for me and my confidence level, I that meant that I had to actually put on makeup and figure out what I'm doing with my hair. And for me, that's a lot of work. I'm just gonna keep it real. I'm not the person that wears makeup every day, but I also have skin things that don't look pleasant on camera to me. So it was a lot for me. And so I decided, okay, in 2025, I'm gonna like be on it. I'm gonna, do my makeup, I'm gonna do my hair, I'm gonna do all these things, and I'm gonna put these videos out weekly. And then 2025 came and life started lifing. And here we are, about 3 weeks into the year, and I have yet to put up a YouTube video. So I actually went on a walk yesterday, and I went on a walk for one because I'm on a weight loss journey, like a lot of people uh, who start the new year. But also, I went on a walk because I was like, I need to clear my head. I've been in the house for too long. If you follow me on Facebook, either in my group or we're like Facebook friends, you might have seen that I posted that my grandma, my beloved grandma, she passed away beginning of January. And so that really just threw me for a loop. And so I've just like been in the house. I've still been working because I do still have a day job, but I've been taking it one day at a time, and it takes time to grieve. It takes time to process all the emotions and all of that. So my point is, I hadn't really been walking and I hadn't really been clearing my head like I needed to. And for me, that's what walking really does. And that's when I actually feel the ideas flow better and, I get all the downloads and whatnot. So anyway, I went on a walk yesterday and I was like, oh, Sade, why have you not filmed any videos aside from the obvious of like, oh, your grandma passed away? But even before that, what are we doing here? And so as I was walking, I realized, oh, I'm just not in an on-camera era right now, an on-camera season, and that is totally fine. So I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And then I was like, "Ah, duh, you're gonna start your podcast. Hello." Like it seems so obvious now, but I'm telling you, until I took that walk, it like just did not even cross my mind that I should start it now. And so initially I was like, oh, I'm going to do my YouTube videos and then start the podcast at like the end of the year, Q4, because that's a project for then. But we're just going to flip it and reverse that and start the podcast today. No promo. It's just going to be a surprise launch, and that's how we're doing this. And I feel really, really good about it. For one, because the fact that I just sat down to do this so quickly, like I said, I went on this walk yesterday. And today I'm like, all right, turn the mic on, push record. We're starting messy. You're probably listening to this on YouTube right now because I literally haven't set up any of the other podcast platforms like Apple or Spotify to put this on. But I was like, doesn't matter. I'm putting this on YouTube because that's where my most of my audience is anyway. And I just have a mic and a dream right now. So we're going with it. And like I said, I'm just giving myself grace and time. I want to be creating, but I also want to be healing. I'm hoping this audio sounds okay. I'm just, filming at my desk, but eventually I should get some sort of I don't know, film in my closet or something with padded walls so the audio sounds amazing, but I'm making it work. So, one thing you might not know about me is that I am actually a podcast girl. Okay, I literally used to host a podcast many years ago. It would probably be at least 7 years ago at this point, maybe a little bit more, but I am a huge fan of the show The Walking Dead. And back when The Walking Dead was on, maybe around season 5 or 6, I feel like that's when I started. I was just like at home bored and I was listening to podcasts all the time about The Walking Dead and about other TV shows. And I was like, I kind of want to do this. This sounds like a lot of fun. And so I started a podcast called Girl on Dead. And I was literally just talking about Walking Dead episodes every week and built a little community around it. And it didn't go crazy. I wasn't like number one on iTunes or whatever, or I think it was iTunes at the time. Now it's Apple Podcasts. But that was so much fun, and I ended up having to cancel it because life stuff happened. But I loved it so much that I was like, oh, for sure, one day I'm going to do another podcast, and it's probably going to be business related because I love my business and all that. And so I thought that maybe I would do that, 5 or so years ago. And here we are, almost a decade later. And I'm like, now it is time. So here I am finally with my business podcast. So welcome. If you happen to have heard about Girl on Dead, let me know because that would be just like the craziest crossover ever because those are two completely different niches, Walking Dead and coaching. Um, so that would just be amazing for me to hear if you happen to have heard that. Anyway, like I said, I'm a podcast girl. I listen to podcasts literally every single day. I even listen to them to fall asleep. So it's kind of like a little bedtime story for me. And unfortunately, I recently heard, while I was scrolling TikTok, someone said, Um, if you need stuff or noise in the background while you sleep or while you fall asleep, you probably have abandonment issues. And so I have no idea if that's valid, but I felt personally attacked because I was like, ooh, that tracks, unfortunately for me. So I don't know if that's actually scientifically proven, but regardless, I'm listening to my podcast every day. I listen to things about TV shows. I listen to lately a lot of fiction podcasts. I love a good sci-fi drama. Let me see. Can I give you some recommendations? There's a great one called From Now. There's another one called Passenger List, which isn't sci-fi, but it's like a drama. There's another one I love called Everything is Alive. I mean, I could go on and on. Maybe I'll do a podcast dedicated to, you know, the top 10 business podcasts or something because I could just tell you all of them. But my point in saying that is that I love podcasts, so it just makes sense that I would have my own. And so I'm so happy to finally be starting one up and that you're here with me to listen to it. So enough with that intro. Let's go ahead and get into the ultimate tech roadmap for coaches in 2025. I'm going to be discussing the 5 tech pillars that you need to have in your coaching business. So, if you're just starting out in your coaching business or you have a handful of clients and you're realizing, I should probably get some tech tools set up so that I can actually either automate some things so I can be more organized, so I can actually set up systems like a client onboarding system and accounting system, a system for actually working with my clients, then this is going to be just what you need to get started. And I apologize if you can hear this car revving right outside my window. I'm like, really? Can you drive away already? Why are you here? I also put all the things I'm going to be mentioning in a nice little handy PDF document for you, so you can download that by clicking the link in the description of this video or audio file, depending on how you're listening to this. So the first pillar is calendar scheduling. This is always the first thing I recommend for coaches to set up when they're trying to set up some sort of system in their business, because when you sign up for a calendar scheduler tool, that means that when someone books a discovery call with you or a coaching session with you, they are going to be able to click on the link that you provide. They'll immediately see your calendar and all of the openings that you have available and be able to pick the time they want to meet with you. And they're automatically going to be sent the Zoom link. You'll be sent the Zoom link. You'll be able to set up confirmation emails, and you're going to basically create a better client experience because first of all, if you, let's say you're working on Facebook DMs and that's how you have people contact you or even email, when they say, "Oh, when are you available?" a lot of times that's going to create a lot of back and forth friction because you're going to have to be like, well, what time zone are you in? And what time are you available? And oh, is the only chunk of time that I'm available. And oh, that's not going to work. And oh, well, and it's just like a lot of back and forth, which can literally be avoided if you just say, oh, hey, I'm so glad you want to meet. Here's the link to my calendar. Pick a time that's best for you. Sounds super professional, and it takes the pressure and it takes the friction away of getting that person on your calendar. So when it comes to the actual tools you can use, the OG in my eyes is Calendly. Calendly is an awesome calendar tool, and now I think they offer even options to take payments. I haven't logged in there in a while, but I believe you can even take payments with Calendly, but I do know that there is a free version you can use. It is a little limited, but if you're just getting started, it should still work out. And even if you're not using the free version, it's very affordable. So Calendly is the OG, but there are others out there that you've probably heard of, like Acuity. When it comes to Acuity versus Calendly, I do think Calendly is more user friendly, but each of these tools has their own features. And so, depending on your needs, obviously, you might like Acuity more than you like Calendly, but I'm a little biased towards Calendly just because that was the first one I ever started using. Now, the second pillar is receiving payments. If you want to receive payments online, you do need to be using some sort of payment gateway. And the two most popular payment gateways, especially if you're in the US like me, are going to be Stripe and PayPal. Now, Stripe is my go-to payment processor because, for one, I just hear less criticism about Stripe. That's not to say I hear no criticism, but I hear less criticism about Stripe, but also because I think it's more flexible, especially when you're connecting it to other tools. So, for example, if you're following me, you know I love the tool Paperbell. And so Paperbell does integrate with Stripe and PayPal, but you can only offer payment plans if you're using Stripe. And if you're using PayPal, your customer only has the option to, or say your client only has the option to pay in full, which is not a bad thing, but a lot of coaches like to offer payment plans. And so Stripe would be my go-to in that case. And so when I say I hear less negative things about Stripe, what I mean is since I'm chronically online and on social media, and I'm in, a ton of business groups. And so whenever I hear about someone saying, "Oh, somebody is holding my money," or somebody is, you know, I got a charge back and it didn't work out in my favor, it's usually about PayPal. I'm not saying that definitively. I'm just saying that anecdotally based on just the comments and threads that I've read. I personally have not had an issue with either PayPal or Stripe, and I use both of them for my business. So, do your due diligence and pick the one that is best for you. And the point is, you do need to have a way to receive payments online these days because not everybody's writing checks. So it's so funny. I have a checkbook and my boyfriend does not. He's like, "What do you need a checkbook for?" And then we went to go get our passports uh last year, and guess what they wanted? They wanted a check. And I was like, this is exactly what I use my checkbook for. Now you have to go to the bank and get a money order and pay for that and just all this nonsense when I can just take out my checkbook and write this check. Now, was that the first time I used a check in maybe 3 years? Sure, but I was prepared. Anyway, like I said, the second pillar is payment or receiving payments. The third pillar in this roadmap is video calls. So, as a coach, especially a post-pandemic coach, most people these days want to meet via Zoom. Now, because we are, a few years after the pandemic, well, more than a few or 5 years from 2020, fortunately, I have been seeing a lot more in-person offers, which really warms my heart because I do love an in-person experience. But when you're meeting with someone weekly, let's say, sometimes meeting in person is not going to be realistic. So you do want to have a video call system set up. And now I'm realizing, why am I calling these pillars? Maybe these should be called systems, but I digress. The pillar is video calls. And so the most popular one obviously is Zoom. And they have a free plan, which is great. Although I have been noticing that they're getting a little more strict on their free plan. I meet with um, my like accountability partners in business who are also just now friends of mine, and we meet weekly or every other week. And we've noticed that Zoom is giving like a 1 hour time limit these days if you're not on the paid plan. So, they got popular, and so now they want to obviously profit, which, fine. But the good thing is that at least an hour is still free. So, um, now there are obviously other video platforms out there. what you want to be looking for is just making sure whatever video platform you choose is going to integrate with the other tools you're using. So, for example, I mentioned Paperbell earlier. I'm going to be mentioning that again soon. Um, but Zoom is one of the platforms that it integrates with, as well as Google Meet. So, when you're choosing which platform you want to use, just make sure it's going to be, integrating with everything else so that way you don't cause yourself a headache later. The next pillar in this roadmap, pillar 4, is an email marketing software, also called an ESP, which is an email service provider. So, with an online coaching business, it's super important that you start your email list. And in the beginning, it might not be like a super important thing to be building. However, in the long run, you do want to be building your email list specifically because since you're probably marketing mostly on social media like Facebook or Instagram, all of the followers that you have on there is great, but you technically don't own those followers. So if Instagram gets shut down tomorrow, or if Facebook gets shut down tomorrow, or if you're on TikTok and you happen to have a big following, we know what just happened with that. There is no way for you to get in contact with those followers unless you have their email addresses. So I always encourage people to build their email list as early as possible because that is an actual asset in your business. You own the email. That means they've given you permission to contact them directly. And it's important that you sign up with an actual email service provider because with all of the like privacy laws, data laws, and all that, you can't necessarily just say, oh, here's my Gmail address, and I'm just going to put everybody's email in the to box and send it. No, no, no. With all the laws now, you have to have uh, more privacy than that. And so the way to do that is to have it sent through an actual provider because just there's a higher level of security there. So one of my go-to email service providers is ConvertKit, which they recently changed their name to Kit. I don't know why. I'm sure it was a big conversation in their board meeting or whatever, but they are now going by Kit. And I'm biased with ConvertKit because, well, see, I already said ConvertKit. I can't even call it Kit anymore, because it was one of the first ones I started using. But also, so in the beginning of my online business kind of career, I guess you call it, um, I started out as a VA and then became like a tech VA. And now I've, consider myself like a tech coach. And when I was working with clients one-on-one, one of the things I was managing was their email list and, setting up the funnels and, the tags and sending out the emails, all of that. And so I used a bunch of different email service providers, and ConvertKit just always was the easiest for me. Um, I just found their user interface to be great, very user friendly, very straightforward, and they also have other features like being able to set up a landing page for like a freebie that you want people to download without you necessarily having to have a website. So there was just like a lot of different features like that that just made them stand out more than the others to me. So ConvertKit was my go-to. Now, no matter which one you use, just make sure it's one that you like and that works for how your brain works and start getting people's email addresses set up in there. Now, the final pillar, pillar 5 for this tech roadmap is a client management tool. And so you heard me talk about it a little bit, but my favorite client management tool is Paperbell. So when it comes to client management, if you don't have a tool yet that you're using, you might literally just be using an Excel spreadsheet, which is totally fine to keep track of, okay, I have, 5 clients and here's how much they've paid, here's how many sessions they've booked, here's how many sessions they have left. You could use a spreadsheet for that. However, it can get a little cumbersome and especially as your business grows, it's going to be a lot, especially if you're not, a spreadsheet girl. But also, even if, I mean, I'm a spreadsheet girl, but like things that a client management tool can do, not necessarily a spreadsheet can do. So, Paperbell is an all-in-one tool that handles your scheduling, payments, your contract signing, as well as your client management. And it's an all-in-one tool. So everything is there when you log in. So remember at the top of this roadmap that I started, I said, okay, you need a calendar scheduler. That was one tool. But if you're using Paperbell, you no longer need that standalone calendar scheduler. So technically, you can cancel Calendly if that's what you have, because now all of your scheduling for your clients is going to be done through Paperbell. You're going to have electronic contract signing with Paperbell. So if you're using something like DocuSign or any other contract signer, you can cancel that because Paperbell will handle the contract signing. And then it has the client management. So when your client signs up for a discovery call with you, or they actually pay for your, let's say a 90-day coaching package, they're automatically going to be given a portal so they can log into that portal. They can see how many sessions they have left. They can see the contract that they've signed. They can see any documents that you've provided to them. They can see any video training that you've provided to them. So many extra features than keeping track of all of this on a spreadsheet or handwritten in a notebook. So let's recap the 5 pillars of this tech roadmap that you're going to be using in 2025. First, you're going to make sure you have a calendar scheduler. Second, you're going to make sure you have a way to receive payments. Third, you're going to make sure you have a way to have video calls. Fourth, you're going to make sure you have a place to store your clients' emails or your leads emails. I don't know if that made sense, but you're going to start email marketing. And then fifth, you're going to make sure you have a client management tool to use. Now, like I mentioned before, you can download this roadmap in PDF form. So you have it for your reference, and I've included links to all of the tools that I mentioned in it by going to the link in the description of this video or of this podcast episode. And lastly, I wanted to mention that in case you haven't heard, I created a new membership called the Backend Blueprint Hub, which is basically why I called this podcast the Backend Blueprint for Coaches podcast, because I was like, oh, I already have the hub, might as well, continue with that same branding. But the Backend Blueprint Hub is a monthly tech membership where you're going to learn more about the exact tools that you need to sell your coaching packages online, how to onboard clients and stay organized. And inside of that hub right now, I have my Paperbell mini course called the Paperbell Roadmap. So if you've been following me for a while, you know that I previously was offering a course slash group coaching program called Sell with Paperbell. Previously, it was called Power Up with Paperbell. And so basically, what I've done now is I've condensed that down to a mini course designed to get you started with Paperbell in just 3 days or less. And so you can find that inside of the Backend Blueprint Hub. I'll put the link in the description for you to join. And I hope I see you inside. So thank you so much for joining me for my very first podcast episode. I'm so excited that I started this earlier than anticipated. Sometimes we have plans and God says, think again. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be starting this at the end of the year. I have all this time. And no, here we are in January getting this out. So let me know what you think. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to this podcast once it's actually up on some podcast feeds. I would appreciate that. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.